Got to get to this one, Jason. The co-owner of the Seattle Storm now suspended and fined for antagonizing fans who were supporting WNBA player Sophie Cunningham. The fans held signs saying, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." The Seattle Storm co-owner left these fans in tears, attacking them for those signs. I mean, what kind of message does that send?
Oh, the message it sends is the message they want to send. They're not welcome at Storm games, and they're not welcome in
because
the
Sophie
WNBA.
Cunningham was like, "Hey,
yeah, God forbid
men's sports, girls play girls sports.
God forbid we actually support women and girls in sporting competitions." I know it's very crazy.
A Seattle Storm co-owner is suspended after confronting teen girls for supporting WNBA star Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham just watched a WNBA co-owner get suspended over a sign a teenage girl brought to a game, and instead of gloating, she responded in a way that's making the entire league look worse by comparison. I truly believe there is a safe space and love for everybody. Biological girls, biological boys, trans women, and trans men. Everyone is welcome at my table. You can disagree and still be kind. Bravo to those girls for standing up for what they believe. You'll be hearing from me soon. Yay for gifts. Truly embarrassing of the co-owner. Unfortunately shows the type of leader she is.
See, another rally, another pro-women's rally in support of Sophie Cunningham, like there was outside of the game in Seattle. There's actually 2 more planned now. And all I've got to say is,
Tuesday night in Seattle was supposed to be a basketball game. Indiana Fever against the Seattle Storm. Nothing more complicated than that on paper. But outside Climate Pledge Arena, before the ball was even tipped, a small crowd had already formed. Some of them backing Sophie Cunningham directly. Some of them tied to a Washington ballot measure about fairness in girls' athletics that's been gaining steam across the state. It was about Cunningham and about a policy fight that had already been building for weeks before this game ever happened.
She's covering your sign.
So how did we get here in the first place? A little over a week earlier, Cunningham sat down for an ESPN feature and got asked directly about protecting girls in sports. She didn't dodge it. No attacks on a teammate or a rival, just an honest answer to a direct question. And that single sentence is basically the reason everything below happened. Because once it hit the internet, people connected it to whoever they wanted to connect it to, whether Sophie meant it that specifically or not.
This is WNBA star Sophie Cunningham. She recently voiced her opinion on trans women in sports, and it led to a courtside confrontation. So ESPN published an interview with Sophie earlier this month in which they explained that she is called MAGA Barbie by some. She said that she got that title simply because of how she looks and where she's from, which is Missouri, but she described herself as in the middle politically. And then she got into talking about trans women in sports, and she said, "I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans, and I'm like, I never once said that." She said, "I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sports who shouldn't have to go against biological men." So that is the quote that gained a lot of attention. Her podcast co-host...
Within days, it had stopped being a basketball story entirely. It got picked up nationally, discussed on multiple morning shows, and turned into exactly the kind of hot-button topic that spreads way outside the world of the WNBA. Cunningham never asked for that scale of attention, but once it landed on her, she didn't back off it either. And that stubbornness is a big reason this whole thing kept building toward Tuesday night in Seattle.
Well, we were just sitting there with our signs that said, like, we love Sophie, like, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up. And so we were holding on, just watching the game. Again, like, we were being super great. We hadn't said anything to anyone else. We were being super respectful. We were just holding our signs and cheering for both teams. And this lady, older lady, comes up to us. And she comes up to us, and at first I think she's going to be nice. And she asks, like, "What are you guys doing?" or something like that. And then it was like, Jesus loves everyone. That's what she told us. And I was like, oh, I know. Like, I'm religious. Like, I know. Like, I know.
Nice.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, I hope Jesus can forgive you for what sin you've done. And, like, something like that. And then she told us that we were effing insane. And that
And she's like, and she went like
Yes.
insane.
Yeah.
She's like, you better stop this.
And stop pulling
shit.
this. Yeah.
And
For you guys
I
to
hope
come
God
here
can
and
save
pull
you.
this. Yeah.
2 teenage fans made it into the arena and sat courtside holding a sign that read, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." That's the whole message. No insults, no call-outs, just gratitude aimed at one player for saying something out loud. According to the girls who spoke with podcast host Brandy Cruz right after the game, a woman approached them mid-game, called their shirts and their presence insane, told them Jesus loves everyone, then said she hoped Jesus could forgive them for whatever sin they'd committed. One of the girls said the whole thing left her in tears before it was even over, shaken by how fast a night at a basketball game turned confrontational and personal. Seattle Storm owner cursed out a teenage girl over her pro Sophie Cunningham sign. The fan was forced to put it away and was left in tears. The fan with an anti-Sophie sign that read, "No hate in the United States," was allowed to keep theirs up. The woman confronting 2 teenagers was identified as Celeste Keaton, a minority owner of the Seattle Storm. Cruz posted about it the next day, and within hours it had ripped through basketball Twitter. According to her account, when she tried to get arena security involved on behalf of the girls, she was told to email the front office instead. Think about that for a second. A grown adult, someone who owns a stake in a professional franchise, cursed at teenagers over a thank you sign, and the response from the building in that exact moment was basically, "Put it in writing and we'll get back to you."
The question really is, what is it about you crazy-ass lesbian WNBA people that you hate kids? I mean, yesterday, the co-owner of whatever that team is called, the Seattle Storm, goes off, makes some little kids cry. Why? Because they're wearing a Sophie Cunningham jersey. So now we've got angry, big fat white lesbian women that have lost their minds, not only on Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, but on children. You know, you liberals, you love the mutilation of children. You want the mutilation of children. And now you just want to crush kids who are supporting, well, somebody that supported them in Sophie Cunningham.
That detail matters more than it might seem at first. It's not just that Keaton allegedly said something out of line. It's that when a fan tried to escalate it through the proper channel, right there, in real time, nothing happened. No apology on the spot, no de-escalation from staff, just a redirect to email. As if 2 crying teenagers being cursed at courtside was a customer service matter to be handled later, rather than something that needed addressing immediately.
Breaking news, Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton was fined and suspended from attending the next 5 home games of the Seattle Storm following the incident with Fever fans last night, in which she made a comment about one of their players' supporters that came directly from the league. So that's the latest on this developing story. So there it is.
By Thursday, the WNBA had seen enough backlash that it had to act. The league fined Keaton an undisclosed amount and suspended her from attending the Storm's next 5 home games. That's a real consequence. No argument there. But notice the timeline. The incident happened Tuesday night. Video and testimony from the girls went public Wednesday. The Storm's own statement didn't name Keaton at all, and it took the league until Thursday to actually confirm a punishment. For a story that blew up this fast nationally, that's not exactly lightning speed from a league that usually moves quick when it wants a headline to disappear.
Just for these Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark fans, I don't think that's enough. She needs to get in front of a damn microphone and podium and camera and apologize to those young girls that she made cry for no reason. And she needs to get on camera and talk about what she's going to do to shore up the security to make sure that fans of the opposing teams don't get spit in the face. That is what she needs to do. This is not nearly enough.
The Storm's apology itself is worth sitting with, too. Majority owner Ginny Gilder said, "We are aware one of our co-owners made comments to 2 fans in attendance at last night's game. We apologize that this happened. Everyone who attends a Storm game deserves to feel welcome, and we remain committed to creating an inclusive environment where every fan is treated with respect." Read that again. It doesn't name Keaton. It doesn't describe what she actually said. And it took the internet applying real pressure, not internal review, to get even that much out of the organization. If Brandy Cruz hadn't posted what those girls told her, there's a fair chance this entire story never sees daylight, and Keaton keeps sitting courtside without a single consequence attached to her name. Here's where Sophie Cunningham separates herself from basically everyone else who's ever been dropped into a moment like this. She didn't come out swinging. She didn't demand anyone get fired. She posted on X, "I truly believe there is a safe space and love for everybody. Biological girls, biological boys, trans women, and trans men. Everyone is welcome at my table. You can disagree and still be kind." Then she added, "Bravo to those girls for standing up for what they believe. You'll be hearing from me soon. Yay for gifts." Truly embarrassing of the co-owner. Unfortunately shows the type of leader she is. She's extending an olive branch to literally everyone on every side of the debate, while still making it clear she thinks what happened to those girls was wrong, and that it reflects badly on the person who did it. And then she goes a step further and promises to actually reach out to the two teenagers with gifts, turning an ugly night into something personal and kind on her end. That's not a small gesture. That's someone using her own platform to make sure two kids who got humiliated in public walk away from this feeling supported instead of forgotten once the news cycle moves on.
Women, biological women, belong in women's sports, not men who call themselves women. It's very, very simple. And then she doubled down. And what happened within the next 48 hours? All of her shoes sold out. They were already, I think, well on their way, but they were all gone, men's and women's sizes, in an hour. Her jersey now is the second top, best-selling jersey in the league. Behind who? Her teammate Caitlin Clark.
That response is a big part of why support for Cunningham has only grown since Tuesday. Sage Steele publicly backed the two girls who were confronted, adding her voice to a growing list of media figures pointing out how badly this reflects on Storm ownership. When you combine that with the White House press secretary previously commenting that Cunningham was standing on the right side of an issue most Americans already agree with, you start to see just how far outside basketball this has traveled. This isn't a small internet squabble anymore. It's become a genuinely national conversation, and Sophie hasn't had to raise her voice once to keep it going, because her calm, gracious response is doing more damage to the other side than any angry post ever could have managed. She stayed exactly as direct as she was in that original ESPN interview, repeated her position without softening it, and still found room to say kind things about people who disagree with her. That combination is rare, and it's exactly why even people who don't fully agree with her stance on the underlying issue have found themselves respecting how she's carried herself through all of it.
A little bit hostile, but they did it anyway. Why? Because they witnessed somebody like Sophie Cunningham have the courage to stand tall for truth and science and facts. I want us to remember the irony of this video right now, and of certainly Celeste Keaton coming up and dropping F-bombs on these young women.
Now think about the double standard sitting in plain sight here. Storm Center Stephanie Dolson wore a shirt reading, "Trans rights are human rights," to that same game. And nobody stopped her at the door. Nobody said a word about it publicly. That's completely her right. Nobody's arguing otherwise. And nobody should be telling her what to wear walking into her own arena. But two teenage fans quietly holding a thank you sign for a player on the visiting team got confronted by a co-owner of the home franchise and told they were insane, in front of thousands of people watching the game. So ask the obvious question. If a sign that just says thank you gets a fan cursed out by ownership, and a shirt making the opposite political statement gets nothing but silence and comfort, what does that actually tell you about where this organization stands? The fact that Seattle had to apologize publicly, and the league had to fine and suspend one of its own owners, says everything about how badly this was actually handled internally before the backlash forced their hand. Nobody in that organization stepped in on their own to stop what was happening in real time. It took a viral post, national media coverage, and mounting pressure over 2 full days before anyone with actual authority said a single word about it. That's not accountability moving at its own pace. That's an organization getting cornered into doing the bare minimum.
Coach, there was a rally before the game, an anti-trans rally before the game, inspired by Sophie Cunningham. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how did you receive her comments and the way it ignited the right-wing and anti-trans supporters? And for the players, have you had conversations in the locker room about it?
I'll jump in on that. We do have an organizational statement. I'll read. So neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life, and we're united on that mission. Do we have more basketball questions?
Here's where the league office and even the Fever organization deserve some real criticism of their own. After the game, reporters asked about the incident, and Fever head coach Stephanie White had nothing to say. The team's PR department stepped in with a prepared statement claiming neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers, insisting the team's only goal is winning games. That statement conveniently sidesteps the fact that 2 fans were mistreated for supporting one of their own players, and it left the rest of the Fever roster answering questions about a moment that had nothing to do with anything they did on the court. That's a fair criticism worth including here, even for people rooting for Sophie, because staying silent in the immediate aftermath did leave a gap that other people had to fill on her behalf. But it also highlights the bigger issue running through this entire saga. The WNBA and its teams have spent this whole thing reacting instead of leading. The Storm's vague apology, the days it took to even confirm a punishment, the Fever's refusal to make their own players available to comment, none of that looks like a league in control of its own narrative.
It is always the people who preach love and inclusion, who think they are morally superior, who are the most detestable, hateful bigots on the planet. If I have learned anything in the last 5 years, I have learned that.
Man, Brandy Cruz went crazy. Undivided with Brandy Cruz. You listen, you got something over there. She's damn good. She came out and exposed this owner. And the WNBA had to do something. They had to do something. Those little girls who got yelled at and cursed out and all of this, they were with her. It just so happens that she knew how to get it out there.
It looks like a league getting dragged into doing the right thing only after the internet forced the issue loud enough that ignoring it stopped being an option. Compare that to how quickly leagues in other sports have moved when incidents involving fans go viral, often issuing statements and handing down discipline within hours rather than days. The WNBA had a clear video, direct testimony from the 2 girls involved, and a co-owner whose identity was already public knowledge by Wednesday morning. And it still took until Thursday to actually confirm any real consequence. And that's really the story here once you strip away all the noise around it. Sophie Cunningham didn't ask for any of this. She just answered a question honestly weeks ago and then responded to the fallout with grace instead of anger when it landed on her doorstep again. Seattle had to publicly apologize. The league had to fine and suspend one of its own owners. And through all of it, the person who actually comes out looking the best in this entire situation is the one who never raised her voice once, never asked for sympathy, and still found a way to make 2 humiliated teenagers feel seen.